It was an unassuming Thursday evening, and I was in the kitchen preparing dinner. The rhythmic chopping of vegetables and the soft hum of the stove fan filled the air. Our three-bedroom house was cozy, though quieter than usual as our 9-year-old daughter, Lily, was engrossed in her homework upstairs. The mundane calm was something I cherished, a small reprieve from the whirlwind of work and parenting. As the clock ticked closer to 7, I heard the familiar rumble of the garage door opening. My husband, Mark, was home from work. He was usually punctual, his routine as dependable as the sunrise. I glanced at the clock and then at the door, expecting his cheerful greeting. But when he stepped into the kitchen, I noticed his face was pale, his usual confident demeanor replaced by something unsettled. "Hi," he murmured, barely meeting my gaze. Before I could respond, I noticed he wasn't alone. Behind him stood a little boy, no older than 2. The child clung to Mark's hand, his dark curls and wide, curious eyes an unsettling contrast to the storm brewing in my chest. My knife clattered onto the cutting board. "What is this?" I asked, my voice trembling. Mark hesitated, his hand tightening around the little boy's. "We need to talk," he said. His words were deliberate, heavy with meaning. I felt the world tilt beneath me as I leaned against the counter for support. "Who is this child?" "Mark?" Mark's lips pressed into a thin line. "This is Liam," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "He's my son." The words slammed into me with the force of a freight train. I stared at the boy, then back at Mark, searching for any sign that this was some cruel misunderstanding. But his eyes, filled with guilt and pleading, confirmed the truth. "Your son?" I echoed, my voice cracking. You had an affair?" Mark nodded, his shoulders slumping. "It was a mistake. 2 years ago. I ended it, but..." He glanced down at Liam, who was now looking at me with innocent curiosity, unaware of the emotional storm he had walked into. "She left him with me today. Said she couldn't take care of him anymore." My hands gripped the counter so tightly my knuckles turned white. The room felt unbearably small. The air too thick to breathe. "You lied to me," I said, the betrayal cutting deeper with every passing second. "For 2 years, you kept this from me?" "I didn't know how to tell you," Mark said, desperation seeping into his tone. "I thought I could handle it, that it wouldn't affect us. But now, I have no choice." "No choice?" I snapped, my voice rising. "You had a choice when you cheated. You had a choice when you decided to hide this from me. And now you just show up with a child and expect me to what? Welcome him with open arms?" Liam flinched at my raised voice, and guilt stabbed at me. It wasn't his fault. He was an innocent child caught in a mess not of his making. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the betrayal was a living thing, clawing at my insides. Mark stepped closer, his hands outstretched as if to calm me. "I know I messed up. I know I've hurt you. But Liam's here now, and he's my responsibility. I need your help, our family's help, to figure this out." Family. The word felt like a cruel joke. How could I think of us as a family when the foundation of our marriage had been shattered? "I need time," I said finally, my voice hollow. I can't process this right now." Mark nodded, relief flashing briefly in his eyes. "Of course. Take all the time you need." I turned and left the kitchen, retreating to the sanctuary of our bedroom. Once inside, I locked the door and sank onto the bed, burying my face in my hands. The tears came in waves, each sob racking my body with the weight of betrayal and confusion. For hours, I sat in the room, grappling with the reality that my husband had not only been unfaithful but had a child with another woman. Images of our life together flashed through my mind, our wedding day, Lily's first steps, lazy Sunday mornings spent in bed. All of it now tainted by the shadow of his infidelity. The next morning, I emerged to find Mark asleep on the couch, Liam curled up beside him. My heart ached at the sight. The boy was blameless, a victim of circumstances beyond his control. But every glance at him was a reminder of the betrayal. Over the next few days, I avoided Mark as much as possible, throwing myself into work and caring for Lily. Mark, to his credit, tried to give me space while juggling his newfound role as Liam's sole caregiver. It was clear he was struggling, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort him. Not yet. One evening, as I was tucking Lily into bed, she asked a question that stopped me cold. "Mommy, who's the little boy staying with us?" I hesitated, unsure how to explain. "He's someone your dad is taking care of right now," I said carefully. Lily frowned. "Is he going to stay forever?" "I don't know," I admitted, brushing her hair back. "But no matter what, we're still a family, okay?" She nodded, satisfied for the moment, and closed her eyes. But her question lingered in my mind. Was Liam going to stay forever? Could I find it in myself to accept him, to rebuild the trust Mark had shattered? A week later, Mark and I finally sat down to talk. The house was quiet, the kids asleep. He looked exhausted, the weight of his choices evident in the lines on his face. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "For everything. For betraying you, for lying, for bringing this into our lives. But I love you, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right." I stared at him, searching for the man I had fallen in love with. He was there, beneath the guilt and mistakes, but the path back to him felt impossibly long. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said honestly. "And even if I do, things will never be the same." "I know," he said. "But I'm willing to try. To prove to you every day that I'm committed to you, to us." Just as I was about to respond, the doorbell rang. The chime echoed ominously through the house, breaking the fragile tension between us. We exchanged a wary glance before Mark rose to answer it. I followed, my heart pounding. Standing on the porch was a woman I instantly recognized from the photos Mark had shown me years ago, a colleague he'd once introduced as just a friend. Her eyes were bloodshot, her expression teetering between anger and desperation. "You can't just take him from me," she said, her voice trembling. "He's my son too." Mark froze, his hand gripping the doorframe. "You left him with me," he said, his voice low but firm. "You said you couldn't handle it anymore." "I didn't mean forever," she snapped, tears spilling down her cheeks. I was overwhelmed. "But you can't just cut me out of his life." I watched the scene unfold, my emotions a tangled mess of anger, confusion, and pity. The woman's presence added another layer of chaos to an already unbearable situation. And as Mark tried to calm her down, I realized that this wasn't just about our family anymore. It was about Liam's future, and the storm that would inevitably come from trying to piece together the shards of our broken lives. Life didn't go back to the way it was before that fateful Thursday evening. But it moved forward, one step at a time, through every tearful confrontation and every unexpected knock at the door. I slowly began to see Liam as more than a symbol of Mark's betrayal. He was a child, innocent, and deserving of love. The road ahead was daunting, but it was one we would navigate together, wherever it might lead.